because there's the 31st.
All right.
We met on the 31st at 7:30 in the morning. Well, I showed up at 7:30. The actual meeting with the kids was closer to 8, and it was for the class period, a shortened class period. So it was great.
Dynamite. Yeah. Exciting.
And it was also a day those students did not have to come to school. So the ones that were there came to us for this meeting. They were told about it and given invitations the day before on the 30th, and they didn't have to show up. I mean, unless they had a computer to turn in, they didn't necessarily have to go to school on the 31st. So the kids that were there wanted to be there.
That's super. What date did you happen to get the date for orientation in August?
She didn't have it for me.
I didn't have it. Okay. All right.
Although I invited her, and I have to reach for my notebook because I'm drawing a blank, which is terrible. I invited Dr. Kelly Ranch. She's the one I spent most of the time talking with. And then the other teacher was Ms. Clark. I asked, do you really read your email? And Dr. Ranch said yes. And I extended an invitation to them to come to one of our meetings in July so that we could introduce them as our Interact sponsors. And she would have more information for us in July of what we needed for August to be able to be a part of the club orientation.
Love it. Good.
Very excited.
I've got 2 more weeks before, or I'm still on the road next week, but I'm back. I'm back for the president's meeting, but
I'm out. I've got a working vacation next week, trying to work not as much, but there's no avoiding it because people buy houses and they need to have them financed when they need them financed. And then I'm starting something new.
Welcome to this June 7th. I forget that date. June 7th meeting of the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville. So good to see y'all today. Thank you for being here. As Lee Davis comes forward to give our invocation and Dan Dodd gets ready to lead us in the pledge, please reach out and greet someone near you.
Good to see you, man. All right.
All right, if you will, join Lee Davis. Lee. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Please bow your head as we recite the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread. That's against us, and lead us not.
Kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen.
thank you, Lee.
Fellow Rotarians, please join me in the pledge to the greatest country on earth. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you both. Thank you, Lee and Dan. And thank you, Carter, for pinch hitting on the greeting today. As I said, good to see y'all. I don't know how I could have forgotten the date because today is my daughter's 30th birthday. So happy birthday to her. Shout out to our Zoomers today. We had a bunch of folks joining us on Zoom. PDGs, Jerry and Ken, Gigi, Ike, Bob, Tim, Judy, Terry. Is anybody else joined us, Joe?
Sounds good.
I think, so if anybody else is out there, glad you're joining us today by Zoom and good to see y'all here today as well. So pop-ups, I only have a few today for you. First, please don't forget that the 21st, June the 21st, is our President's Night Party. And that's where we will usher out the old board, usher in the new board, have the passing of the gavel. It's a really special evening event for us. We will not have a lunch meeting that day. So no lunch meeting on the 21st. We'll meet here at Timaquana that evening, 6 o'clock. Spouses, family members are welcome to join us for that event, but please plan to be there. It's a special event for us. And and make sure you RSVP either through JackDB or through the link on the calendar, or let Patty know, or let me know, or let somebody know, so that we order appropriate amounts of food for that evening. So again, June the 21st, President's Night. Now, Joe has a foundation pop-up. Joe?
Mine is quick again today. Just want to let you know, going through the records here at the end of the year, we have an awful lot of people who have Paul Harris recognition points. What does that mean? You've given money to the foundation. They put that money over here. Maybe you've gotten the Paul Harris about the deal, but you still have points in there that you can give more. So sometime this week before the next meeting, you should be getting an email from me that just says, welcome, thank you for giving this much. You are currently at this level, Paul Harris +1 or whatever. However, you are still eligible to name 2 more, 5 more. Yes, 1 person, 8 more Paul Harris funds. So point being is we got them. It's like having money in the bank and forgetting you got it. We're going to find it for you, have you get to some of your friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So to be sure that I'm following that correctly, when you said if you have 8 more, does that mean you have points in the bank and you could name 8 people to be Paul Harris Fellows without giving any more money?
That is correct.
So you could name the street sweeper, your car wash
Well,
person.
Maybe
your
maybe
brother,
we
your
focus in
sister.
and do preachers 1 month. We focus in and do mortuary people 1 month. We do retired, whatever the club wants to do. I just want them to know it's there, and they will.
Any questions about the points? And they can ask you if they would like to know how many points they have available.
Yes, or Patty.
Or Patty. Great.
Thank you.
Joe. Appreciate it. Are there any other pop-ups? You guys are easy today. Too easy. Did you have a really good time at Memorial Day or something, and now you're just not awake again yet? Okay, good. All right, family and Rotary, Kathy Cole.
Birthdays this month. June 1st was William Milne. I don't know if William's here. Yesterday was President Sean. Everybody, happy birthday to President Sean. Today is Mark Eldridge. Is Mark here? Well, happy birthday, Mark. Mark and Donna Halsey are celebrating 26 years of marriage, and congratulations. I heard today that they met at Rotary and that their honeymoon was at the RI convention. So they are dedicated Rotarians. I want to announce, we have a nice announcement about our Rotarian Jay Henderlight. Jay Henderlight has been board certified by the Florida Bar in Marital and Family Law. And for those of you that don't know, it's the board certification is the bar's official independent determination of a lawyer's expertise to practice in a particular area. You have to take a test and you have to have a certain amount of hours practicing. And only 7% of lawyers are actually certified in the field of law that they practice. So big congratulations to Jay. Does anybody have anything else that they want to announce? All right, well, I'm gonna try, Joe. Reaching the end of a job interview, the human resources officer asked a young engineer fresh out of MIT, "And what starting salary are you looking for?" The engineer replied, "In the region of $150,000 a year, depending on the benefits package." The interviewer inquires, "Well, what would you say to a package of 5 weeks vacation, 14 paid holidays, full medical and dental, company matching retirement fund to 50% of salary, and a company car leased every 2 years, say a red Corvette?" The engineer sits up straight and says, "Are you kidding?" The interviewer replies, "Yeah, but you started it." That's the end of my report.
Thanks, Kathy. That sounded pretty good to me. Thought I would apply. Okay, starting at arms, Carter Rosenblum is going to introduce our guests and visiting Rotarians and give us some Rotary history. Carter?
All right, we'll start with our guests today. We have a few guests here today. I'll go around the room with the microphone. Ed Lombard has a guest for us.
It's my pleasure to introduce Austin Nicholas. He's the head of government affairs for the Northeast Florida Builders Association. I've known him since he was 8 years old.
And speaking of 8-year-olds, Meredith Smith.
Well, he's not 8. It's my pleasure to introduce my oldest son, Ambrose Smith. You'll have to stand up, Ambrose, who is 10 and attending Grace Episcopal Day School. And as he told Patty, he's an aspiring chef. And I've known him since he was young.
And Mr. Corrigan is brought against it.
I have with me my son-in-law, Wayne Rogers, who is a teacher and coach at Terry Parker High School and has been there so long that he's set in the stones, I think. Wayne Rogers.
And Alfred, where are you? He's a returning guest. I believe you've been here for a few meetings, and it looks like you're going to be joining us here pretty soon. We're glad to have you back. Thank you. So you'll probably be pretty happy to know that I put together a history moment that's jokes today. When we left off last time, it was in the 1930s, and Paul Harris was doing extensive traveling around the world to promote Rotary during the Great Depression and hopefully stop a lot of, bring in new clubs to bring in money because the U.S. was struggling. That worked out pretty well, and that's where we ended up leaving off, learning about pretty much everywhere in the world that he went to. Towards the end of the 1930s was going into 1940s, Paul and Jean's health was really starting to decline. At this time, Rotary was healthy, but World War II unfortunately loomed on the horizon. As the conflict grew between Japan, Italy, Germany, between other countries in the late 30s, Rotary avoided taking a stance due to its international presence in all these countries. They believed it was important to remember that Paul made good friends in all these areas during the travel. Rotary's reasoning was that Rotary clubs should not be involved in international politics, should not become propagandists against any cause, national or of international concern. Well, as we all know, by the 1940s, this was not an option for Rotary. By that point, the Axis had deteriorated too much of Europe and the surrounding areas. At this point, clubs in Italy, Japan, Spain, Austria, and Germany had disappeared, and Rotarians kept the light going. And as the Axis army spread, the clubs in the conquered areas disbanded. Some dedicated and courageous Rotarians kept the light of Rotary lit. Rotarians began meeting secretly, even in the heart of Nazi Germany, Japan, and Italy, often disguised as drinking clubs or social gatherings. And surrounding areas that were occupied, other clubs became ski clubs, bridge clubs, and sports clubs. These underground clubs somehow managed to maintain contact with other Rotary clubs in the three lands. And between them, they were successful in providing food parcels and other humanitarian aid to intern camps for those in critical need of help. During this time, Paul was entering his early 70s and was becoming sicker and more exhausted due to his health decline. He decided to spend more time on the home front, focusing on the war and helping other efforts instead of focusing on Rotary at the time, which many people did. He attended war bond rallies and helped with rationing and scrap drives. As the Allies gradually fought back, Paul spent more time on this. Despite all this, Paul and Jean managed to attend international conventions in Cleveland in 1939, the Havana, Cuba in 1940, Denver in 1941, Toronto in 1942, and St. Louis in 1943, and Chicago in 1944. So he was pretty unhealthy, but he still managed to do more than most of us. By 1945, Paul and Jean's health was really starting to drain. Paul could not attend the 1949-45 International Conference in Chicago and was no longer hosting visitors at his home. And that's where I'll leave off on our history of Rotary today. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. And you saw in your Westward a little bit of information about him, so I'm not going to repeat that. But our speaker today is Tim Rogers, the director of the Jacksonville Public Library System. He joined us here in Jacksonville back in 2018. He comes to us with degrees from SUNY Portland, the University at Buffalo, and Indiana University. As a youth, he had an interest in the community theater. He was an exchange student to Finland. He's an avid baseball fan and worked at the National Baseball Library in Cooperstown. He enjoys museums and sailing. Obviously, he likes libraries. He's a history buff, and I found this really interesting. I don't know why I thought a librarian would read primarily like historical things, but he reads mostly nonfiction. And as an avid reader myself, I just can't wait to hear all about what he has to tell us about the public library system here. So please help me give him a warm welcome to the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville, Tim Rogers.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And if not, I'm sure Joe will adjust the volume so that you will be able to hear me. As Sean said, I am the library director, the chief librarian for the city of Jacksonville. I've been since 2018. I came here from most recently Oklahoma City, where I was a library director there for a while, a couple of years. And then prior to that, I ran the digital library of North Carolina on campus at North Carolina State University. I've got a storied history behind before all of that, but it's actually only interesting. In fact, my wife would say it's not even interesting to her. So, and she was part of that. So now it is interesting to me that as you were going through like some of the birthdays, and it reminded me that my anniversary is tomorrow. My wife has been out of town. Unfortunately, she's been dealing with some stuff with her mom, but she comes back tomorrow. So I know what I'm going to be doing later today, and that would be at the very least getting some flowers and card for the anniversary. But thank you all for inviting me here. I really appreciate it. It's, as Sean said, I am very passionate about the library. I think libraries are among the most important services that the city provides. I worked for, back when I lived in Kansas, I worked for a library director who said there's only one service that's more important than public library service, and that is wastewater. And I would absolutely agree. No one wants to live in a city where wastewater is not dealt with. And I think that people would probably say a similar thing about public libraries. You don't want to live in a city where there's not a good public library. We are very fortunate here in Jacksonville to have a great public library system that's been in place for more than 100 years. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of detail.
Give me just a second, I'll get you up.
Okay, awesome. I'll give you a little bit of detail some of the things that we tell everybody. While Joe's doing that, let me also mention that I am actually a Rotarian. I've been a Rotarian 3 or 4 times over, depending on where I lived, and I am a member of the downtown Jacksonville Rotary Club. So, so this is nice. I will say that when I get out to the other clubs, not that the downtown club, that it's great. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I have learned something every time I've gone to a meeting. But just like big cities and sort of smaller towns, there's more of a lot of times there seems like there's more of a community feel at some of the clubs that are not the downtown club. The Mandarin Club that I spoke at one time was very much like that as well. So thank you for being so welcoming to me. I definitely feel the love. So thanks for that. Let's see.
So you're pointing it at me?
Yeah.
Okay, then I will do this for you.
Okay, great. Cool, then I don't have to hold on to that. Okay, so, and this one,
Turn it on, then you can walk. Or take them.
all right, here we go. Okay. Get my DJ voice. So the first thing that I always like to talk about a little bit with the library is the history of the library. I mentioned that it's over 100 years old. The Jacksonville Public Library originally was established back in 1878, but it wasn't the same Jacksonville Public Library that we have today. It was actually like a reading club. It was a number of folks in the community who thought it was important that they have access to a library. And so it was more like a subscription type library. This was pretty common back in the 1860s, 1870s, but that's what got started. And that library lasted in one way or another up until the fire. And when the fire happened, the library that existed was right down, it's actually like a block and a half from where the main library is right now. But of course, it was decimated by the fire. And at that point, because there was so much other need for buildings, the city fathers at the time approached the Carnegie Corporation, and Andrew Carnegie, you may know, is sort of the godfather of libraries, distributed a lot of money to build libraries, but they were to build libraries. He did not want to put any money into operating them. His deal was, if he was going to pay for a library, the local city had to raise a tax that would pay for ongoing services. And so the first tax-supported public library is what is now the Bedell Law Firm, the old Carnegie Library on Ocean. And if you ever want to see that, I don't know how many people have been in there, but if you ever want to see it, they actually do give tours. All you have to do is tell them you're interested in seeing the old library, and they'll walk you through that building. It's an incredible building. As far as like the structure of the library, so the library is a city agency. It is a city department. But unlike most city departments, I don't actually report directly to the mayor. I report sort of across to the mayor, but I actually report to the library board. The Board of Library Trustees is set up in the city's charter. It is a group of 12 individuals who are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. Those folks are responsible for 3 main things: setting the policy for the library, establishing or requesting a budget, and make it very clear that it's just requesting a budget, not actually setting the budget. And the third thing is they hire the library director and ensure that the staff is qualified. So I would say that one of their most important jobs is hiring me. Now, they may not say that, but I would say that it's a policy setting board, so they determine all of the rules and regulations that are connected to library service. That's the library board. As far as the way the budget is put together, as that slide says, they make a request annually as part of the budget process. That budget is filtered. The mayor makes a final decision, and when he or she makes their proposed budget in July, the library's budget is included, or at least the proposed budget is included in that. Then obviously, as it goes through city council through August and September, the budget is finally established by the city council. Then we spend the money. We then coordinate and figure out what's the best way to spend the dollars that have been allocated and appropriated by city council.
I mentioned the policy. I don't have a lot more to say about that, but if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer. I did want to mention that there are 21 libraries currently across Duval County. There's the main library. We have 4 regional libraries. Those are large libraries that serve more than just the neighborhood. They also provide backup services to some of the neighborhood libraries. And then there are 16 neighborhood libraries. We are in the process of designing the 17th neighborhood library. It'll be up on, so where it is exactly is, it's over by Sheffield Park, near Ocean Way. We call it East Ocean Way or North New Berlin, depending on where you're from. But it's up in that area. So we keep a lookout. We will be talking more about that, and the design process is set to happen throughout this year, and construction in the first quarter of next year. So I'm not going to go through exactly our strategic plan, but know that what we have is a strategic agenda. It's a short version of what our strategic plan is. It sets out the specific things that we're trying to achieve. And the things that we're trying to achieve, what we see as our mission is to enrich the lives of the people of Jacksonville, to make their lives better. But we don't just do anything to make that happen. We focus on reading, writing, literacy, and lifelong learning. If you think of the public library is the ultimate bootstrap organization in the community. If you have finished with your official schooling, it doesn't matter whether you're 18 or whether you're 118, if you finish with your official formal schooling, but you still want to learn something new, the library is a great place to go. And our vision statement points that out. Start here, go anywhere really means you can start learning anything you want by going to the library. A lot of people say to me, wow, do we really need this kind of thing now? We've got the internet, everybody's got a smartphone. I'm going to show you some numbers in a couple of minutes that show that people still use libraries pretty heavily. And the way we are looking to measure our success over the next decade or so is to really focus on trying to get 75% of households across Duval County utilizing the library in an area that does what I'm talking about, which is that improving reading, writing, literacy, and lifelong learning outcomes. So that's the short version of what are we all about? What are we trying to do? We are the single largest educational institution in the city. And I say that because we support all of the schools, public, parochial, private, as well as all of the the higher ed institutions, and all the rest of us who aren't going to school right now. So we may not teach a curriculum, but we provide an opportunity for you to set whatever curriculum for learning you want. So that's what the library is all about. So these are the numbers that I was talking about. So I don't know if you can see those. They look much better on the screen than I have in my office. But one of the things that I wanted to demonstrate was over the last, of course, with COVID, when COVID happened, there was a huge impact on libraries. The first big impact was we closed them. For 3 months, we were closed. And during that 3 months, just like in every other industry, people found other ways to do the things that they've been doing through the library. So over the last 3 years, what we've tried to figure out is how can we reinitiate the habits that people had with the library? How can we keep those going? How can we restart those in some ways? So you can see that in FY22, which is October of 21 through September of 22, these numbers represent some of our output measures. So as far as the number of new cards we had 22,000 new cards. We had 1.8 million visitors, people that actually visited a library. And keep in mind, that's with the main library closed for about 5 months because we had the Regeneron clinic that was housed in the library at the time. You can see more than 300,000 hours of public computing that happened. More than 80,000 people went to programs, meeting room bookings. So that's just the number of bookings because we don't actually know how many people are coming to those meetings. They don't tell us that. But that's the number of people that booked rooms, meeting and study rooms across the system. And then the number of items borrowed, 4.2 million items were borrowed by people. That's digital as well as physical. And then as far as overall active cards, about 180,000. Now we say active cards and not active card holders. And the reason I say that is because how many of you are parents? And so that means you have kids. So if you had a kid and you took that kid into the library and that child had his library card when you left home, but by the time you got to the library, somehow they had misplaced that card. Oftentimes what we find is that parents will check out a number of things for their child. And so that active cards means that's really probably in some cases closer to a household than it is to a person. So that's a big number of households, and it's not an exact translation. We're working on trying to get those numbers more specific. So I went through all of those. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through the one in blue, the one on the right, the same way I did, but recognize that there is a somewhere between 5 and 20% increase, in some cases a little bit higher than that, across from FY22 to FY23. Now, some of that is because people are still sort of recovering from the haze that was in their brain because of COVID, and they're starting to visit. But some of it also is because we're focusing on what are the things that people can't do someplace else? What are the services that we provide that are somewhat unique from other places? Now, you could say that borrowing material is not really that unique. I can go to the bookstore, I can go to Amazon, and I can get most of the stuff that the library has, most of the informational resources. And that's totally true, except when you do that, you buy it, and now it becomes yours. What we're talking about here, all of these services that we provide are shared services. These are the services. How many people saw It's a Wonderful Life? Okay, so we're like the Bailey building in London, right? So you put your money into the library and it's there for you when you need it. Not the money, but in service, right? In kind is there for you when you need it. But when you don't need it, it's good for Joe's, when Joe needs it, or when Sally needs it, or when someone else needs those resources. It's meant to be this community resource, this utility that is available to all. And so what we're seeing, what we think we're seeing is in the last fiscal year, in FY23, Mayor Curry actually increased the budget proposal for the library by $2 million. $1.5 million of that went to informational resources. It's the first time we've had an increase like that since like 2008. Now, it doesn't mean that it didn't go up a little bit here and there, but that was purely for service. And what we saw with that increase, with that 5% increase to that budget line, what we're seeing is a return on investment close to like a 20% increase in the number of people who are actually using the library. And that to me is important. That shows, because people vote with their feet, right? And when I say vote, I mean they show up. And when they show up, they're showing that it's meaningful, that there's something in there for them. So if you haven't used a library in a while, I would suggest that you do what these other 200,000 neighbors of yours have done and check it out. There's a lot of stuff going on in these libraries. So let's in a couple of weeks we'll be changing out the picture. But Mayor Curry has actually always been very supportive. I got here in 2018, so he was mayor when I got here. But what I would say is I like the fact that every once in a while, the mayor actually tweets something about a book. Now, there are a lot of mayors across the United States that not only do they not tweet about books, they're not reading books. And so to me, that's an important characteristic in any kind of elected official. And I do think that we're very blessed here in Jacksonville that many of our elected officials are extremely supportive of the library, city council, as well as the executives. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of these things, but recognize that like borrowing does not just mean what it used to mean when I was a kid, where you go into a library and you borrow a dusty book off of the shelf that probably somebody hadn't taken out for 25 years. Borrowing now means all of these other services as well, right? So we're talking about it's books, it's ebooks. We actually received a grant from the federal government to start lending physical, computers, laptops, Wi-Fi hotspots. so that people who had connectivity issues, who weren't able to get to the library, who weren't able to have access to these things in their homes, they would actually be able to borrow it for a few weeks to work on projects and things. Yeah, so programs and events. So this is another piece. So that whole idea of start here, go anywhere, part of what we like to do is we try to introduce people to new ideas, new thoughts, new information that they might not have known was available. Now, keep in mind, we're not doing it because we have a belief that you need to know this thing. It's that we think that there are a lot of people who want to know a lot of things, and we want to spotlight all of the new things so that they're aware that it's available at the library. So if there's something that you're interested in, but you aren't sure where to start, take a look at the library's webpage, take a look at our Facebook page, take a look at our events calendar. Chances are we've got something going on there. One of the other things that we added in the last 18 months, I don't know, we used to do something, the foundation used to host the Much Ado About Books, where we'd have a ton of authors come and they would have an all-day seminar, or maybe 2 days with authors. We stopped doing that back in about 2005, and we started actually restarted having authors come to libraries. And the reason why we did that is we were talking with an author, a children's author, and he said, you know, what I don't get about libraries is why they don't have more authors come and talk. It's mostly bookstores that do that. But if libraries did that, what kids would see is that the people who write books are just as important as the people who play basketball, just as important as the people who make movies, just as important as the folks who put on concerts. And so part of what we see as our role is to try and spotlight authors across the community, not just for kids, but for their adult handlers who also need to see this. Because the number one thing that you can do to ensure that kids read is let them see you reading. You don't even actually have to be reading, but if they see you holding a book, they're going to think that that book is important. And that is a huge component for them reading later in life. All right, study rooms, meeting rooms. Okay,
Back up.
yeah, I'm just going to mention this a couple of. Okay, perfect. So this is an area where we've definitely seen an increase in usage. We're one of the few places across the community where you can go without spending money and just hang out. And sometimes that is a really good thing for those of us who are waiting for somebody at a doctor's appointment. It's nice to have a place where you can just go sit and maybe even find something to read or look at or investigate. But the meeting rooms, study rooms, we have a lot of HOAs who meet at the library because it's the only place that they can get without having to pay money. All of it is free. We also do space rental. So the rental piece is, this is just at the main library, but has anybody been to an event at the main library? Yeah, so it's a great space. So this picture is actually our, what I wish had a better name, but it's called the multi-purpose room. I wish it was called something grand. It's a place where we actually do probably 20, 25 weddings a year. It's a smashing success. It's a great location. And from what I understand, the prices are quite reasonable. So there's also some outdoor spaces you can use. A couple of the services that I did want to highlight, if you haven't been to the main library and seen on the fourth floor, we have the special collections department. So that's where a lot of our local history stuff is. It's where the Ansbacher map room is. And now it is where we house our memory lab. The Memory Lab is a grant-funded project that provides technology so that if you have, let's say you have pictures or Super 8 film or audio tapes or VHS that you want to digitize, but you don't know how to do that. You don't know where to go. You can actually go to the library and do it for free. Part of what we have seen is like this huge influx of people. We thought this was a cute little idea. We did a small grant. We were pretty excited about it. And we've been blown away by the number of people who have actually utilized that service. Not only are they utilizing the service, part of what we ask them when they digitize the stuff is we say, hey, if it's indicative of Jacksonville, if there's something historic there, would you mind contributing it to the digital archive of the city? And so what we found on the first week we were open, our head of special collections was reviewing one of these videos that had been donated by a customer. And as she's watching this video, and it was the opening of the Paxson Shopping Center, and as she's watching this video, so it was like from the 60s, and she sees her grandparents walk in front of the camera.
Oh, wow.
Like, she didn't know, it wasn't her video, she didn't know her grandparents were in there, but that's the kind of serendipitous thing that can happen when we work together to put together this shared memory service. So this is a big deal of something that we're doing, and I'd love to, if any of you ever want to have a tour of this place, all you got to do is contact me, and we will definitely set it up. And that's not just because you're Rotarians. We will do it for just anybody in the general public. But because you're Rotarians, we'll give it to you for the special price of no cost.
Right.
So, all right. So I mentioned the Ansbacher map room. So this was a donation of more than 240 maps that have been beautifully framed. We've also digitized all these. And so you can, every one of these maps some of them are historic, some of them are less historic. But all of them have Florida and specifically Jacksonville as a point on there. It's truly an incredible gift that was given to us by Louis Ansbacher. And the other piece that we do is we do a lot of programming. We stopped during COVID, but we're starting it up again this year. Programming and educational lectures about maps and the history of maps. So there you go. These are some of our special collections that we have that are on the fourth floor. Go ahead, Joe. And there's others, but these are the top ones. These are the ones that people come in and ask for. These are the ones that have the most research. I did want to mention a couple of projects. We've got some big things happening. So I mentioned the New Berlin. So it's on New Berlin Road. That's why it's actually Ocean Way, New Berlin, but it's on New Berlin Road. We're also going to, it'll be about a 30 to 40,000 square foot building, depending on the price of construction. But we are in the process of doing the design work for that. Additionally, the Brentwood branch, which was, if you've ever been to the Brentwood Library is on 27th and Pearl. And it is an old movie theater. It was built in the 40s as a movie theater. It was repurposed as a library in '61. And it's been the Brentwood Library ever since. It's a cool building, but it really never worked as a library for that neighborhood. I say good news because we haven't started the renovation yet, but the school district gave us the old Brentwood Elementary School. So that's a campus of 3 buildings that includes a really big meeting space that we'll be able to use, as well as sort of an historic building. It was built in 1915. And we'll be renovating that over the next 2 to 3 years to turn that into the new Brentwood Library. And then we'll have to figure out what we're going to be doing with the old Brentwood Library. But something tells me that someone else will decide that. Once it stops being a library, it's no longer my problem. The other thing I did want to mention was we have a project that's happening at the beach. We'll be doing a renovation of the beach. The design work will start next year. And then the actual renovation will be done a year or 2 after that. These are some of the services that I did want to mention that we're going to be offering soon. So we've got the at-home delivery. So this is a service for folks who can't get to the library. If you know of a family member or a friend who maybe can't get to the library, part of what we want to be able to do is deliver service directly to their house. So just like Amazon delivers to their house, we're going to deliver to their house. Unfortunately, we're not Amazon, so it's not going to be all of you who are mobile and can get to the library. You're still going to have to keep coming for now. But eventually, we hope to have some sort of service like that as well. The pop-up service will be something that we're going to be utilizing other facilities, specifically in the parks, to provide some library services, but in a mobile way. Don't think about like bookmobile, but think more about like these pop-up libraries that will be libraries for a few hours and provide the service to mostly kids is what we're thinking. But the idea is to try to put as many books in the hands of kids as we can in as many places as we can. And that's where the last bullet point here, Jack's Kids Book Club. This is a project that we've been working on. Excuse me, project the city's been working on for about 17, 18 years, but it was handed over to the library a couple of years ago. And our foundation is actually doing a lot of fundraising behind this. We're revamping this. What we do is we give book sets of books, sets of about 10 books to 4 and 5 year olds that are in voluntary pre-K. And so what we know is that many of these kids don't have books at home. So what we know is before they go to kindergarten, every one of these kids that's in pre-K in Duval County gets a 10 book collection that they will have with them. So even if there's no other book in that house, they will have this small library of their own. And we hope that that makes a difference to them when they think about how important reading is. And we try to teach some skills to the parents as well so that they carry forward with that reading capability. So some of the groups that help us out, obviously the Library Foundation of Jacksonville, the Friends of the Jacksonville Public Library. We also have a number of friends groups that are branch specific. So we've got 6 or 8 of those, and there's a new one that's potentially going to be growing up around the Poplar Creek Library. So keep an eye out. If you're interested in starting a friends group or joining a friends group, again, just let me know and I will hook you up with them. We have a pretty healthy volunteer program. So that was a lot of information in a very short period of time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have or anything else. So thank you all.
I'll bring the microphone around for anybody who has any questions.
Does anybody have a library card with them?
Yes.
All right.
Do we get points?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that I would like to do is get the names of the folks that have a library card with them. And so if you have a business card or something like that, or if you will just write it down, awesome. Then just write your name down. And because you're Rotarians, I know you're going to be honest about this. And I just want to send you a little bit more information about the memory lab and send you one of these. We don't do a lot of tchotchke at the library where we give away free stuff because we try to put it into the material that goes out to everybody. But this was part of a grant project, so I can give away this grant stuff. But if you would put your name down for me, I would love that so that I could send you this. I really appreciate it. What questions can I answer?
I'll actually start with a quick question. I like to use the app or the internet site Libby to download a lot of audiobooks, and it makes me use my library card to log in. I was wondering if that's part of the Jacksonville Public Library and how that program actually works. I think it's fantastic, but I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, great question, Carter. So the Libby app is that's a service that we subscribe to, that we pay for. It is part of the services that we offer. We didn't design it, although, we're one of many libraries that are part of this. It's utilized by more than 50,000 libraries across the US and well, really the world. They've gone global. So it's a great service. We actually have multiple ebook and e-audiobook services that are similar to that. So if you like Libby, check out Hoopla as well. It has a broader selection of titles. And you don't have to wait in line because they're all available right now. So, so that's a great question. Appreciate it.
That's good to know. Thank you.
As you know, school libraries are under attack, and I'm wondering if a similar thing is happening at the public library, and what policies do you have to address that?
Great question. So yes, obviously school libraries are handled differently than public libraries. However, across the nation, we have seen that there are many challenges that residents of any community are making against either the library or the library board, or trying to get books taken out of libraries. I will say that here in Jacksonville, we're actually, I hate to say, this is one of those, I don't want to jinx it, but we've actually been pretty fortunate. We tend to have somewhere between 6 and 8 challenges every year. And when I say challenge, what I mean is somebody says, hey, I don't like that book, please take it out of the collection. We have a whole process for how we handle that. And that process it's a very methodical. We've been doing the exact same process for the last at least decade. In the last, I would say, probably 3 years, while we've seen nationwide the number of challenges go up, in Duval County, it has stayed about 6 to 8. And it's honestly, it's like 5 books every year. It's the same 5 books, and then a couple of new ones that have come out. I don't think, the way we look at it is we have a collection development policy. We have a process, a standard process for how we select and purchase material. And as long as it fits that process, that policy, it's good. And we have the process generally is that it gets the first view, staff do the first review, and I respond to the customer who complained. And then if they want to continue the challenge, it'll go to the library board, and the library board makes the final decision. But we have not had one go to the library board since I've been here. So it stops. That's not with me for the most part. Great question. Thank you.
I'm simply interested in what the controversial books are.
Oh, I think that yeah, I mean, so they're like, I don't know the titles exactly right now. I can tell you that several of them will dealt with themes, others dealt with religious themes. We had where we have gotten more challenge, I wouldn't even call it a challenge, but where we've gotten more suggestions is that we need to have additional books added to the collection. So there have been some titles that we didn't have, but it was because we couldn't actually. So surprisingly, you can't just buy everything on Amazon. Sometimes you look, and when I say you can buy anything on Amazon. As the city, we couldn't, up until recently, we actually couldn't do purchases on Amazon very easily because of a bunch of rules. But I think most of them are the cultural differences that we're seeing politically across the spectrum. Again, I think that Duval County tends to have a pretty 50-50 approach. And so it's not like some of the other communities, even here in Florida. Citrus County has been one of the ones that has been a lot of challenges in the last few years. So if anybody wants a full list, I could probably put that together. It's not that long. It's a short list. Okay, but I can use it.
Thank you so much for being here. As you know, Tim, as a Rotarian, you know that education and literacy are very important to Rotarians. So thank you for sharing that information with us today. And as I said, as an avid reader, I was really interested to hear all that. So, and your staff is so patient. I can't tell you how many times I've lost my library card on my phone, and they just, or I'll try to log on and I'll get a personal email the next day. It looks like you tried to log on yesterday. Here's how to do it. So thank you for their patience. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you to our Zoomers for being with us, and to our guest today, and Alfred, good to see you again, and Ambrose, Austin, Dwayne, good to see y'all today. You're always welcome here. We hope to see you again and often. And to the Halseys, congratulations on your anniversary, and to Jay, congratulations on your certification. We're excited for all of y'all. Some reminders. Don't forget to see Joe if you want information about your Paul Harris Fellow Points. President's Night, June the 21st, here at Timuquana. And please join us next week when our speaker will be Kevin Hyde, and he will be speaking on the Jacksonville Public Education Fund. Very interesting, and that's a group that Joe Springer and I and Larry Daly, I think, went to their function a couple of months ago, wasn't it, Joe?
Yes.
So please be sure to be here for that. So thanks again, Tim. Appreciate you being here. Josh Harrison is going to lead us in the four-way test. Josh?
Fellow Rotarians, please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, second, third, fourth.
And your quote for the today from Dr. Seuss. The more you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you will go. Y'all have a great week. Take care.